Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It is becoming very clear that this Nebraska program is just different in 2024. And I think a lot of the national media headlines will go to guys like Dylan and go to guys like Ty Robinson and Nash on the inside of the defensive line. I think one of the storylines that not enough people are talking about is that you're having some, I wouldn't say role players, but guys that we didn't necessarily know would be dudes for Nebraska in 2024 really emerge as difference makers for this Nebraska team. Want to give some love to some surprise standouts for this Nebraska team in the early stages of 2024. And I think the fascinating part of this conversation is that there's probably 20 to 25 names that we could talk about in this episode. I picked my top five. Now, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Ton of players that deserve some love and recognition that we're not going to be able to talk about. So let it fly in the comment section. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. The amount of support from the Nebraska fans, it's been amazing. Y'all know I love talking this program. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. And without further ado, let's get into this one and let's start with the true freshman Jakori Barney. It is becoming very clear that Matt Rhule, Coach Sat, this Nebraska offensive staff, they want to get the football into this kid's hands, and I can't blame him. Like when he has the football in his hands, it looks different, it feels different. And I think what's so big about the emergence of Jakori Barney is he balances this Nebraska offense out. Where you look at Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, we knew they would be difference makers for Nebraska as bigger boundary receivers working vertically down the field. But what Nebraska was kind of missing over the last couple of years, specifically in 2023, was, having that difference maker with the football in their hands. That seems to be Jakori Barney. Whether it's kind of shallow crossing routes, whether it's end arounds out of the backfield, they are making it a clear point to get Jakori Barney touches throughout a football game. And he's one of those guys that when he has the ball in his hands, he can really, for lack of better terms, change a game. And I think his role is only going to get bigger as he continues to mature within this Nebraska offense. Again, it's important to remind everybody he's only played 2 collegiate football games in his career. It's not necessarily the biggest surprise for the Nebraska fans who have been reading the spring practice notes and the fall camp intel, because this guy has been making waves throughout his time at Nebraska. But I think he is kind of that X factor in this Nebraska offense that Nebraska really just didn't have over the last couple of years. Next guy I want to talk about, and we had a long conversation about really throughout the offseason. Matt Rhule has noted it multiple times in his press conferences. We're looking for a running back to really take over the running back room. Now, my personal pick was Gabe Ervin. A lot of your guys' picks were Emmett Johnson. We kind of got our answer throughout the first 2 games of the season. It's going to be Dante Dowdell, Ramir Johnson. I'm going to go with Dante Dowdell because he is that running back that I think he fits exactly how Matt Rhule wants to run the football for this Nebraska program. Dante Dowdell at 6'2", 225, with how vertical and how heavy he runs the football, is not going to be a guy that defenses want to tackle 20 to 25 times a game. And I think Matt Rhule is going to make him do exactly that. Dante Dowdell, one, is big and physical enough to kind of handle that workload. But I think more importantly, what's Nebraska looking for in that rushing attack? Yes, they want explosive plays in the run game, but they also want to stay on schedule, right? They want 2nd and 5s. They want 3rd and 1s. What running back is best suited to keep this Nebraska offense on schedule, fall forward, have yards after the contact? Kind of some of those, I would say, hidden yards. Dante Dowdell is kind of that guy. You look at the 4 running backs in the room, I think they're all capable of doing it, but I think Dante Dowdell has really earned it outside of that one fumble because he does give that attacking the line of scrimmage. Look, Nebraska wants to run a lot of power, a lot of inside zone concepts. You need a running back that's going to get vertical and attack downhill. If there's anything we've learned about Dante Dowdell throughout the first 2 weeks, he's going to invite contact. He's going to attack the line of scrimmage. Dante Dowdell's emergence in this offense is going to take, at least in my opinion, a massive load off Dylan's back, because you're not going to be in many 3rd and long situations, especially if you clean up the penalties that we saw in the second half. Dante Dowdell's emergence, not only for Nebraska's rushing attack, but really helping Dylan run this offense, has been really, really big for this Nebraska program. Now, Going into number 3, I want to talk about a guy that's been within this Nebraska program for a very long time, has been a very volatile football player for Nebraska, and that's tackle Turner Corcoran. This was a guy that when we've seen him play, it's been a roller coaster. There's been some bright spots, but there's also been some not so bright spots, to kind of put it frank. You look at Turner Corcoran through the first two games of this 2024 season, he's only allowed one quarterback hurry and pass pro, which has really been his biggest concern, right? The pass pro guys attacking his outside shoulder in that pass rush. Turner Corcoran's been really good. And one thing about Colorado that I don't think enough people respect is they got some dudes in the edge rushing category. You look at BJ Green or Dayon Hayes, those were all conference edge rushers in the ACC and the Pac 12, respectively, last year. Thought Turner Corcoran did a really good job in pass pro, but I also think he's been road grading in the run game. You want to give an MVP to that Nebraska offense, especially in the first half. It was this offensive line, again, those inside zone concepts where they're just, for lack of better terms, physically imposing their will against this Colorado defensive line. That's how Nebraska, Matt Rhule, wants this offense to look. Our biggest concern on the offensive line was by far Turner Corcoran at the tackle position. I think he's been very good for Nebraska to start 2024. If he stays healthy and builds off the early performances, I think you got yourself a really solid offensive line for Nebraska. Now, going over to the defensive side of the football, our biggest, I think at least my biggest question mark was, what's the off-ball linebacker position look like? Not only losing some of the veteran players you had last year, but then Javin Wright going down with not the injury, but the health concerns. Mikai Gbayor has been phenomenal for Nebraska. He leads the team in tackles. He leads the team in run stops. He's had 4 run stops on the year with an average depth of tackle 1.8 yards down the field. In that 3-3-5 defense that Tony White likes to run, the most important part for an off-ball linebacker is to be attacking the line of scrimmage. I don't think they got enough of that last year. Mikai, although not the biggest linebacker, is firing downhill. He's making his plays at or behind the line of scrimmage, and he's not missing tackles, right? He leads this team in tackles, doesn't miss tackles. At least in my opinion, it was the biggest concern we had for this Nebraska defense in the emergence of Mikai, which we saw kind of glimpses of in 2023. He's putting it together in 2024. I think that's huge for this Nebraska defense. And going to my last, kind of surprise standout, and that is James Williams. And we kind of talked about this kid in the offseason as you saw the flashes of James Williams in 2023 as a guy that's, I believe, was a walk-on, but he would flash some real juice tacking the outside shoulder of offensive tackles. He's put it together a little bit, right? He looks a little bit more physically ready for Big Ten football. And I think what's so good for James Williams is, one, we kind of had the conversation of, can Nebraska get pressure on the quarterback with only rushing 4? We certainly saw that against Colorado on Saturday night. But I think more importantly, from the outside, a lot of the production from Nebraska's pass rush last year was guys like Ty and Nash on the inside. You've had Jamari Butler step up, but James Williams as that kind of speedier edge rusher, kind of like Principal U is, has that ability to really attack the outside shoulder of offensive tackles and force quarterbacks to step up in the pocket. Now, why is that so big? Because you look at trying to step up into a pocket with Nash and Ty on the inside, there's really no pocket to step up to. You look at Shedeur Sanders, why he struggled. Hey, I think Shedeur Sanders is one of the best quarterbacks that we see in the country. Why did he struggle so much Saturday night against Nebraska? He didn't have a clean pocket pretty much all night. And Nebraska wasn't bringing that much pressure. They brought 5 a couple times, maybe 6, a few. But on aggregate, like, this was a Nebraska team that was whooping Colorado's offensive line in the pass rush, really only bringing 4. And James Williams was a massive part of that, played 26 snaps against Colorado on Saturday night. Really, he's got 4 quarterback hurries, a 20% pass rush win rate through the first 2 games of the season. I think the emergence of James Williams is really big for Nebraska. Those are my 5. Again, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all